In the shadow of the Great Pyramids, a question has echoed through centuries. Who were the masterminds, the laborers, the people who raised these eternal monuments from the desert sands? For too long, the answer has been clouded by a geopolitical paradox, a strange and persistent effort to disconnect ancient Egypt from its African roots. This is the story of how that narrative was built, and how science and history are reclaiming the truth. The story of the pyramids begins, not with stone, but with people. Long before the first pharaoh, the Nile Valley was a cradle of innovation. Imagine the Badarian culture, flourishing around 5000 BCE. These were some of the first true farmers in the region, cultivating wheat and barley, herding sheep and cattle. Their distinctive black-topped pottery wasn't just functional, it was a work of art, a sign of a society with time for beauty. They buried their dead with care, facing west towards the setting sun, a practice hinting at the complex afterlife beliefs that would later define pharaonic civilization. From these roots grew the Nakoda cultures, which unified the Nile Valley. This wasn't a sudden conquest. It was a gradual cultural fusion. We see Nakoda artifacts, pottery, tools, and symbols slowly appearing and blending with local traditions, from the Delta in the north to Nubia in the south. This period, from roughly 4000 to 3100 BCE, was a crucible of state formation. Small chiefdoms coalesced into larger kingdoms, culminating in the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under a single ruler, marking the dawn of the dynastic age. This was an indigenous African evolution, a civilization growing from its own soil. Then came the Pyramid Age, the fourth dynasty, around 2600 BCE. This is the era of Sneferu, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. These weren't alien overlords or a foreign race. They were the direct descendants of those Nakoda chiefs and Badarian farmers. The pyramids they built were the ultimate expression of a state that had spent millennia mastering its environment and organizing its people. Building the Great Pyramid wasn't a project of brute force. It was a national project, a logistical masterpiece. It required quarrying, transporting, and lifting millions of massive stone blocks. So, where is the proof that the builders were native Egyptians, indigenous Africans? It's written in the land itself. The quarries for the limestone casing and core blocks were right next to the Giza plateau. The granite for the inner chambers came from Aswan, deep in southern Egypt. A journey made possible only by a profound mastery of the Nile. They were harnessing their own landscape. Then there's the human evidence. Bioarchaeological studies, analyzing skeletal remains from the workers' cemeteries at Giza, have been conclusive. As Dr. Zahi Hawass, a leading Egyptologist, has stated, the anatomical evidence points to a population entirely consistent with the people of the Nile Valley, both ancient and modern. There's no trace of a foreign population group suddenly appearing to build the pyramids and then vanishing. These were Egyptians. Their diet, their health, their physical makeup all tell a story of a life lived along the Nile. The cultural continuity is just as powerful. The religious beliefs that inspired the pyramids, the king's journey to the stars, the concept of the afterlife didn't appear out of nowhere. They evolved directly from the burial practices we first saw with the Badarians thousands of years earlier. The artistic styles, the hieroglyphic script, the entire administrative system that organized the labor, all of it grew organically from pre-dynastic Egyptian culture. The pyramids were not an import. They were the ultimate homegrown achievement. So why was this clear history ever questioned? The answer lies in the 19th and 20th centuries, and a mechanism of erasure known as the Hamitic hypothesis. European colonial powers were expanding across Africa to justify their rule. They needed to believe to make the world believe that true civilization could not have originated from black Africans. Ancient Egypt, with its undeniable greatness, posed a major problem. The solution was to reclassify the Egyptians. Proponents of the Hamitic hypothesis argued that the ancient Egyptians were not truly African, but were a branch of the Caucasian race, the Hamites, who had migrated into Africa and brought civilization with them. It was a purely political theory, masquerading as science. It used flawed skull measurements and misinterpreted texts to create a racial wedge, cleaving Egypt away from the rest of the continent. This idea infected scholarship, museums, and popular culture. It led to depictions of Egyptians as fair-skinned, almost European, in movies and books. It created a narrative where the wonders of the Nile were the work of outsiders, not the indigenous people. This wasn't just bad history. It was a tool of oppression that denied Africans a claim to one of humanity's greatest legacies. The psychological impact was profound, creating a sense that African history only began with colonialism, that its pre-colonial past was without achievement. Today, we are reframing that narrative. The Hamitic hypothesis has been thoroughly debunked by genetics, archaeology, and modern Egyptology. Scholars now overwhelmingly recognize ancient Egypt as a fundamentally African civilization. This isn't about replacing one racial theory with another. It's about restoring historical accuracy. It's about looking at the evidence without the filter of colonial bias. When we see the Sphinx, we should see the face of an African king. When we marvel at the pyramids, we should see the ingenuity of an African people. Recognizing this truth enriches our understanding, not just of Egypt, but of world history. It shows that the capacity for monumental achievement, for complex society, for profound art and science, has always been universal. The story of the pyramid builders is a story of history reclaimed. It's a testament to a civilization that arose from the Nile mud, shaped the very stone of the desert, and reached for the heavens. Their legacy isn't just in the monuments they left behind, but in the truth of their identity, an identity firmly and proudly rooted in the African continent. Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please like this video and subscribe for more chapters from our shared human history.